Welcome, geeks, to another exciting episode of Rockin The Code World with dotNetDave. I'm David McCarter. I'm glad you're back this week. I have an exciting show I've been looking forward to, so I'm excited about that. Something came up in the past week or two is you all heard the intro song that I wrote and performed with some of my friends. And the lead guitarist on that track, my friend Mark, he indicated to me he wants to re-record the song. So do you guys think that's a good version, or do you want a new one? I'm gonna leave it up to you guys to tell me if you want a new song. I'll work on it, but I need some input from you. Because recording music is not the easiest thing in the world, so I definitely don't want to spend the time doing it if I don't have to. So welcome to the show. This is the 60th episode of Rockin The Code World. Woo-hoo! I can't believe it. I hit 60 already. It seems like I just started this not too long ago, so during the pandemic. So I'm glad you're here. And my guest today is Shaun Walker. He's the CTO of Professional Services of Cognizant. And we're going to be talking today about a framework that I really like. And for me to like something, you all know, has to be pretty dang good. And that is Octane, that Shaun has been spearheading, which is a Blazor web app. Well, I'll let him explain it later. Let's put it that way. But if you are into Blazor or want to get into Blazor, don't leave. Watch the show. This is going to be a really, really good one. I think you're going to be impressed, because if I'm impressed, I know you guys will be impressed. So let's get going. I want to, again, unfortunately, make a shout out to my friends in the Ukraine. I feel bad, of course. I think we all do feel bad about the Ukraine. I'm going to keep bringing it up until the war is over, because, I don't want this to come out of anybody's mind, because we need to send our, support and any help we can do to the Ukrainian people to fight the terrorists that lives in Russia. So please just think about them. I know, especially in America, there's a lot of stuff to think about, but make sure you think about our friends in the Ukraine. One thing that I noticed this week, that I'm actually getting some hits on my site from the Ukraine, which hasn't happened in a while. So maybe that's a good sign. I hope it is. But I went to the Ukraine in 2015. I loved it. I've been trying to go back ever since, but unfortunately, I think that's going to be a while now. But I definitely want to go back to Ukraine at least once, because I really fell in love with the country and the people there. So keep them in your thoughts. I also want to make sure you all know that the Code Quality and Performance Virtual Conference is coming back next month on the 19th. I'm so excited. You all know that last year we did this conference for the first time through CSharpCorner Live. And we have, Simon can correct me, but the last time I heard, we had over 65,000 viewers of that conference. And so, one thing that, that 65,000 viewers told me, that you guys really want sessions or conferences wrapped around code quality and performance, because I don't see a lot of these type of sessions at conferences. I monitor conferences to see what they're giving to the attendees, and I don't see a lot of these, especially the big paid conferences. I hardly see any, if any at all, sometimes zero. So I hope you will go to the website and register. We are accepting papers right now. So if you want to speak at the Code Quality Conference, please submit your papers now. I'm not sure when I'm going to be picking speakers, but probably at the beginning of the month. So please make sure you put that on the calendar. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be really informative. And it's a pet theme with me now, that this is really what I'm focused on in my writing and speaking and things like that. So I wish we could do this in person. Maybe someday we can. That's up to Mahesh, but I definitely am excited about the virtual one next month. So let's get more than 65,000 viewers next month. Oh, we're up to 72, Simon says. Woohoo! Wow. That's amazing for one day. Okay. Also, don't forget to check out my open source library called Spargin. I'm working on a newer version right now. It's got some pretty cool stuff in it. Spargin is basically all the common .NET code I've been writing ever since .NET 2. So I've had an open source project out there ever since .NET 2. Spargin for .NET 6 is the latest version of that. And what it is, it's just all the things I write at companies, not proprietary, of course, that we kind of having to, research on Google, how do you serialize this or how do you do that or blah, blah, blah. I kind of wrapped all that into Spargin because when I go to companies and work there, which I'm looking for a job right now, I try to get them to use Spargin because that's what it's made for. So I hope you go check it out, and even better if you help contribute to the project too. That'd be awesome. And if you live in the US, I will definitely send you some swag if you contribute. So, and maybe India too, because I'll be going there in October. All right, let me introduce Shaun. Shaun is the original creator of Octane and DotNetNuke, web application frameworks that have earned the recognition of being amongst the most pioneering and widely adopted open source projects native to the Microsoft platform. That's definitely true. I worked on a project for a cell phone manufacturer here in San Diego where I was using .NetNuke, and I actually had to convert the CTO, whoever, this is common, the CTO comes in and says, oh, we hate Microsoft. No, we have to use Oracle. And so I actually did that transition in like a couple of days. So it's a great framework. Anyway, based on the significant community contributions, he has been recognized as the most MVP for Microsoft for over 14 years. Shaun is a Canadian living in Florida, is currently employed as a CTO of Professional Services for Cognizant. Welcome, Shaun.
Thanks for having me on the show.
How's it going?
First time on Rockin The Code World, so very excited.
That's great. How's the weather there today in Florida?
Yeah, the weather here is like you'd expect, hot. It's and my bigger problem is that my air conditioning died a couple of days ago, so I'm sitting here and it's 85 degrees in here.
And it's humid as heck there too.
Yeah. Anyways, I know it's going to get repaired on Tuesday, so I'm counting down the days.
Oh man, time to check into a hotel room.
Yeah, that would have been a smarter idea this weekend for sure.
Well, I'm glad you took some of your Saturday out to talk to everybody about Octane. I've to let all the viewers know that I've been working back and forth with Mahesh, who runs CSharpCorner, because he's trying to use Octane in a couple projects he's trying to land. And so I've kind of been helping with that in the sales calls right now. And so I have looked into Octane. I've looked at the source code. I've seen how it works. And so I wanted to have Shaun come on and tell everybody just what Octane is and show it off too, because I think, the work that you guys have done to make it easy to configure, to me is impressive. So, and everybody out there, make sure you ask questions. This is, Shaun's been around a long time and, in ASP.NET world, and he's got a lot of great info, I'm sure, to share. So make sure you ask questions. This is your show. It's not my show, your show. And it can only be great if you ask questions. So, all right, welcome, some friends from India. I don't know who else is watching. I thought my friend Mark, the guitarist on the music, was going to be watching today. Yep, Mahesh submitted his talk for Code Quality Conference. Yeah, well, I don't know if I'm going to pick you, Mahesh. What's my incentive to pick you, right? I want to be bribed. I need retirement money.
He doesn't get any favoritism at all?
Nobody gets favoritism. Mark is here. Hey, Mark. Mark is watching a show today. He's the lead guitarist on the song at the beginning of the show. So, hi, Mark. And Mark is the one who wants to know, wants to re-record the song. So let me know if you guys want me to re-record it. So, I was thinking about Octane this week, and I was looking at it this morning too. So before we start talking about Octane, let's talk about dotNetNuke. And the funny thing about dotNetNuke is I was, because I'm looking for a job, I was going through the job postings, this week, and I actually saw a job posting for a dotNetNuke developer.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was going, wow, I haven't heard of that in a long time,
Yeah.
so, but specifically dotNetNuke. And I was going, wow, that's interesting. Your framework you built, a long time ago is still being used, of course.
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting. So obviously it went through its hype cycle, right? Where it was probably most popular in the years of maybe 2006 through 2010 or 11, maybe, which is like, a decade ago. But there was so many implementations of it because it was open source and very widely adopted that there is still a lot of implementations that are out there. And in fact, the product lives on, right? I haven't been associated with DNN Corp since 2014. The company itself was acquired by a private equity firm in, I think it was 2018. They continue to support the commercial customers that were using the commercial version of it, but there still is a large open source community around it and supporting it and doing projects with it. And there still is a large ecosystem of vendors building products like modules and the skins that work with it as well. So it's still around for sure. And it's, at this point, you can imagine like something that's, it's like 20 years old now. It's very mature and it's very feature rich, right? It's got so much functionality in it. So I guess the only challenge with it now is it's still based on .NET Framework, and Microsoft has put out pretty strong messaging that for new projects you probably should be looking at a .NET Core based solution. So but I mean it's withstood the test of time. It's actually exceeded what I thought it would in terms of longevity. It's kind of crazy that way. Although I think it's funny when you see a job posting, and I'm sure that the job posting was actually pretty decent in the sense that when I think back to like the let's say the year 2000, right, when all those Y2K projects were coming up for COBOL and Fortran and like all of these legacy technologies, right? They were pretty good paying gigs because the skill set was becoming very scarce. Right. And I feel like that's sort of the case with .NetNuke as well, right? That skill set is becoming more scarce now for people who really understand the framework. And so, so those folks who are really skilled with .NetNuke are still doing quite well with it.
Great. Well, let's explain to everybody who's hasn't been around as long as you and I have been what .NetNuke really is and how it came about.
Yeah, so I mean, it was originally conceived as a web application framework, which really the idea behind it was that I don't like the idea of having to build everything from scratch for every new software development project. So it's kind of like what you were talking about with your open source project, Spargin, right? When you want to have building blocks that are sort of proven, already established, that you can trust. And why build them over and over and over again, right? And I think more than building blocks, what .NetNuke was it was an entire framework that had all of those building blocks assembled in a certain way. So it gave you some guidance in terms of how to build an application. And so that would accelerate your software development efforts because it would give you all of the things that you would normally expect, like membership and roles and sort of a page compositing model and all of these things that you don't want to be spending time on because it's really just commoditized functionality. And then you could focus on building the more higher value business functionality, right, for your clients. So that was the idea behind it. And it really resonated with a lot of developers at the time. And they liked the idea that you could use a platform like that as a foundation and then build on top of it. And that whole model was also very popular because SharePoint used it. There was a number of other frameworks. Dynamics uses it. Like there's a lot of platforms out there today that use that same exact model for those reasons.
Yeah, and it was it was really talked about a lot, back then. And you said it started in 2006?
No, so the actual open source project, I started building it probably in 2001, but didn't really think about releasing it as an open source project until late 2002. And really it was not like a deliberate decision. It was more, I was doing it as a hobby project in my spare time, didn't really see a way of like moving it forward in a commercial sense. Not with like the limited resources I had at the time. And it was more of an experiment, right? If I release it as open source, would other people be interested in helping out? And a whole community grew around it pretty quickly. So it was the right decision. But as it became, of course, more popular, then it required even more focus. And I was lucky enough, to be able to spend full time on it after a while, right? It was generating enough revenue through various streams. And then we created a company around it in 2006, and we raised actually 3 rounds of venture capital to accelerate and grow that company. Actually, we had an office in San Mateo, California. We had an office near Vancouver as well in Canada, where I was from. We also had an office in Amsterdam for a period of time. So yeah, it was interesting going through that journey.
Yeah, I bet. And you kind of reminded me of the early history of .NET or ASP.NET, where between ASP.NET version 1.1 and 2, or framework version 1.1 and 2, Microsoft actually did a lot of work to create these providers and all these things to help us stand up websites faster. Because even like I don't want to say the old days and new days, but whenever someone says to me now, I want to build a website, I just go, oh my gosh, really? You know how much work it's going to take just to get the base stuff working, and authentication and all this. Right. I mean, every time I think about it now, I go, oh no, I don't want to do that. That's why all my blogs are on WordPress, right? Because I don't want to deal with it. And so,
yeah, absolutely. And I agree with that. So, and I guess that's another aspect of dotNetNuke was, although it was conceived as a web application framework, it had like an HTML module where you could like add just random sort of text, right? And you could build out virtual pages and add content to the pages. And then so people thought of it as a CMS. So, because you could manage some content in it, so people would build websites with it. And so it sort of had this dual personality, right? Where it was both a tool for developers to build apps, and it was like a website builder for content creators. And that dual personality actually created some challenges over time, because you can't really serve both of those audiences really well. You have to kind of choose. And so when we got funding in 2008, we actually chose to pursue the CMS aspect more, right? Go deeper in the content features, which, I mean, we had a good customer base as a result of that. But that's not it was weird, because that's not where the origin of the product was.
Right.
So it was kind of interesting how it morphed in that direction. And so, and when we're going to talk about Octane, I'll have to explain sort of the rationale behind it as well, because it's probably not exactly what some people perceive it to be.
So let's talk about Octane now. What is Octane, and how did that come about?
Yeah, so I guess I stopped working at DNN Corp in 2014, and then I went to work for one of our implementation partners who was doing a lot of enterprise development. And so that was good for me, because as a executive in a product company, I was doing more like PowerPoints and presentations and talking to customers. And getting back into consulting, I got to go hands-on again, right back into the code, which was good. And I sort of understood how the industry was evolving, because when you're in a product, you sort of view everything around that product. And then when you get away from the product, you see that there's a whole lot of other solutions that are available. So that was good for me. And then it was, I guess, 2018 when it was actually Scott Hunter that reached out to me from Microsoft and said, we've got this thing, Blazor. It's quite interesting. It's got a really strong component model behind it. I think it would be a pretty cool solution to build something like you did with dotNetNuke. You should check it out. And so I hadn't really looked at it closely. It was still in preview stages at that point, but I could see what he was talking about. I could see the potential. So I built a POC, very rudimentary, that like had the page compositing model that we had in DNN, right? Where you could define pages, you could define which kind of like modules you want to add to the pages. It was all dynamic. It was actually kind of tricky to figure all that out in those stages because the dynamic capabilities of Blazor were there even in the early stages, but there was no documentation around it, no examples on how to do it.
Yeah.
So we kind of had to forge a path there. It's become a lot easier now in .NET 6, where they actually have a dynamic component that you can use to make it a little bit easier. But all those primitives were there right from the start. And so that's what I had to use to build the POC. And and it's been a really great solution to build a framework around. But again, so getting back what I was just talking about, the goal with Octane is it's a modular application framework. So the idea is it's for developers to build applications. Yes, it still has a HTML module that's part of it, but I don't envision it natively adding support for a lot of content capabilities like content versioning or content workflow or content localization, right? Those deep content capabilities that would be part of a CMS. I don't see that on the roadmap for the product. I'm trying to serve a different audience with Octane.
Yeah. But someone could do that, right? Someone could build something like that.
Yeah.
That plugs into Octane.
Yeah, right? There already are people who are building like richer content focused modules that you can plug in and then get that CMS capability.
Right. So we don't have any questions yet, except for Mahesh says he's sorry to hear about your AC situation. Mahesh would probably hate his air conditioning going out right about this time of year too. If you're ready, can we show off Octane a little bit?
Yeah,
and then,
sure.
The one thing I definitely want to show off is how easy it is to create a module that plugs into Octane and that configuration part of it too. Because I think that's really, really easy. I mean, super simple that even a non-techie could at least add modules and stuff to Octane.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I can't tell if so I'm sharing my screen already, but do you have to do something to make it show up to the audience?
Simon's got to show it. Simon. Okay. Simon's in a hotel room with his friends right now, everybody. So he might be a little behind in wait, he's saying something. Yes. No, Simon. He wants to show his laptop.
Like I can stop sharing and then reshare or
there you go. There you go.
All right. Yeah.
Simon's not paying attention.
It's fine.
I know.
It's Saturday. I get it. Yeah. So this is the official, I guess, Octane website, right? At octane.org. This site is actually built using the Octane framework. This site is actually architected in kind of an interesting way in the fact that I just basically utilized a Bootstrap 5 template, which I liked, which had like all the navigation and different page sort of areas that were part of it that I wanted, and adapted it very simply into an Octane theme, added my content to it. It's very simple to do that, right? So you can take advantage of things that already exist out there in the web ecosystem to make them work with Octane, because obviously it uses Blazor, and Blazor is still based on, web standards. So this site is actually comprised of like a custom theme, and that custom theme contains all of the images and the content, and then it just links to different areas of that one page. The only other page in this site is this blog page, which is actually built using what we were just talking about, a distinct Octane module, which is built as a separate application and plugs in seamlessly to the framework. And then I added an instance of that module to this page, and it allows me to create blog posts. And I can go in and I can read these blog posts. It's obviously a very small one, longer articles as well. And this is obviously, I can go into the edit aspect of things, and it has a rich text editor, much like you'd see in a lot of different CMSs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can modify the text and save it.
Yeah.
I'm logged into the site here, so there is a whole backend to Octane as well. So if I bring that up by bringing up the control panel, I can bring up the admin dashboard, and it has all of these features that are built in already. So things around site management, because of the fact that it's a multi-tenant solution, so you can host multiple sites that are part of the same installation.
Right.
Just like dotNetNuke. So each site has its own distinct set of users, its own set of roles, its own set of content that you can manage as part of that site, which is all virtual. I guess the cool thing about Octane is that each site can actually be, the content can be stored in its own isolated database, whereas with dotNetNuke, everything was in one shared database. So having the ability to have isolated database is kind of nice if you want to keep like cleaner separation between your different sites that are part of your installation.
Yeah.
The control panel also has the ability to add additional types of content. So, I mean, I could add as many different pages as I want to my site. You can organize them however you want. They can be hierarchical in nature. And then I can add modules to the page as well. So in the module area, I have a bunch of different modules that are defined for this particular site. I think from there, so the Octane Framework is an open source project. It's of course on GitHub. So this is the GitHub repo for it. The latest version is version 3.13. I've had like 22 releases over time. Lately, we've been trying to release something every month. There's a lot of activity that's going on in terms of adding additional like features or fixing whatever issues come up. So there's a lot of different functionality that's been added over time. This, as I mentioned, this project started way back in 2018. So it started on .NET Core 3.1, and then it was migrated to .NET Core 5, and then to .NET 6. And of course, then we'll probably try to have a release ready in November for .NET 7 as well, as the next version will be focused on will include support for Maui, which is a pretty natural fit because of the Blazor hybrid support that's coming.
Yeah, that was when I first when Mahesh first had me look into Octane, and I saw the potential with it. I was going, man, maybe I should change my website to it. And then I thought, no, I want to keep on WordPress because if something happens to me, I want my site to live, because if on Octane you have to pay for the hosting, right? But so I have been working on something new that I'm actually using a Blazor hybrid, and because I need that hybrid piece for some of the features, and now because I was looking at this morning and I was going, oh, now I know where I can use Octane personally, and so I think I've got a great idea now that I'm going to work on. But when is that support going to come out?
Well, we'll try to have it ready for November. It'll probably we'll have something out before that, but obviously, of course, like Maui itself won't be fully supported until the .NET 7 release, I believe. So, but of course, people could use it in a pre-release form as well. But that's sort of the timing that we're looking at for that. I mean, the idea with Octane was like really take advantage of Blazor. So it already supports Blazor Server and Blazor WebAssembly within the same framework. In fact, within the same site, and I can show you that in a minute. Or sorry, within the same install, you can use the two different hosting models. And so maybe it's easiest if I switch over now to Visual Studio.
Sure.
So I have the latest version of Octane installed, right? I just pulled it down from GitHub. In the server project, there's an app settings.json file. By default, when you install Octane, there isn't a connection string. This is going to be provided for you when you install it because there's an installation wizard that makes it really simple to install. Octane natively supports 4 different databases. So, of course, you can use SQL Server or local DB, but you can also use MySQL, Postgres, or SQLite, depending on what you want to do.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I run the application,
And
obviously it'll go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that, one of the things that I like about Octane is that, the base framework of Octane is updates from you guys, and all the work that we do are in custom modules, right?
Correct.
And so that way Octane can continuously being upgraded with the latest version while that doesn't touch any of your code, right? So I thought that was a really good way to, go about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was even like a concept that was there in DNN, is that, and just like SharePoint or Dynamics or any other framework that you would use, the idea is you leverage the framework, treat it more as a black box, right? Even though you have access to the source code so you can see how it actually works, it's better to not modify that yourself, right? If you find issues with it, then report them so that they can be fixed. But you should focus on taking advantage of the extensibility points, right? That and building your custom applications using those extensibility points. And then you can upgrade the framework on a constant basis as new versions come out. Get the latest, fixes, get the latest enhancements that are part of that. And we take care of like making sure that that framework is upgradable from version to version. So that model has a lot of benefits as opposed to the model where you build using some kind of like an application template, right? Which basically would stand up an initial project, but from that point on, you get no benefit of like no upgradability option at all. You're on your own, right? So yeah, that's basically the clean separation, right, between the framework and then the extensions.
Yeah, so I think that's a great architecture. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is obviously version 3.13, which is the latest version. I'm going to install it on local DB. It gave me some default options here, which I'm just going to accept. So I go ahead and install. It's going to run.
Hey, Simon, hold on. Simon, can you show his screen again? There you go. All right. Thanks.
Yeah. So it's running all of the EF core migrations that are required. And then it actually creates an initial site for you with some default content. And that's why, it has some default content on this initial screen. There's a few different pages that are created by default. So, you've got a typical home page with public facing content. You've got a private page. And because I'm logged in automatically as this user that was created, I can see this page. If I was logged out, I wouldn't be able to see this page. So it's got this, security access for authenticated users. It's also got a My Page capability where, like a portal type of application, a user can basically, once they're authenticated, they can have a version of this page of their own. They can add content to it as they see fit. So that sort of concept of a personalized page that a user can modify themselves.
Right.
We added a develop page as well so that it's very clear that, you can create extensions. And so this has a module creator that you can fill out some very basic information and it'll scaffold out a complete set of code for you. Using a code template. We just have one default code template. But yeah, to have like a fully functional module then that you can use as a starting point to create your own modules, it's quite helpful.
Yeah. I really like how you can, set it up right in the configuration and click a button and it creates it creates a new Visual Studio project and then brings that up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this demo page was created because I have an assembly that I created previously that happens to be in the bin folder, and it has this ability to do content migration capabilities. So this is really powerful if you want to, create. Using a continuous integration like CI/CD approach, you might want to add additional pages or additional modules or additional content to your site as part of your upgrade process. So you can create migrations that are content focused. These are not database migrations. These are Octane specific content migrations. And then as you move from version to version, it'll add those changes for you automatically as you deploy. So this was also something that was not possible in DNN. So in a lot of ways, Octane has exceeded, I think, the capabilities that were available in DNN. And certainly because DNN was originally created using concepts that were popular for the .NET framework, and perhaps I was also in a different level of my career at the time when I created DNN. There's a lot of criticisms about DNN being like very tightly coupled, like not architected to modern standards. I would say that those are all true statements.
Because it's 20 years old. What do you expect?
I know. Yeah, so I wanted to like have a blank slate, create it using all the most modern architecture, have very clean separation, right? It's a single page application where things are very cleanly separated from one another. And I think that that's what you were alluding to at the beginning, where you looked at the code and you looked at the architecture, and it looks a lot cleaner than probably if you ever looked at DNN, right? It
does look cleaner, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that was kind of the goal behind it, and that's going forward, obviously, that's still going to be one of the goals. If we go into the admin aspect of things here, so every site has an admin area. If I go into the site settings, it has various things that you can configure as an administrator. Things like, this site may have to send email to users, right? So it has SMTP settings that you can set up. You can actually configure this site to have progressive web application capabilities. You have the ability for this site to respond on different URLs. So you could have a number of different URLs that map to the site. The hosting model is where you define whether you're running Blazor Server or Blazor WebAssembly, because it supports both. So I could have one site that's in my installation that's running on Blazor Server, because maybe that was my preferred running environment for that site. But on a different site in the same installation, I can specify that I want to run on Blazor WebAssembly. And then the tenant information, like I said, you can support multiple databases. So this site is running on LocalDB. I could create another site that's part of the same installation that runs on SQLite, right? And all of the data that would be part of that site would be stored in a SQLite database. Right? So it has a lot of configurability that wasn't possible in the DNN framework. If I go back to my home page and I go to the control panel, I have a list of modules that are pre-installed. And let's say I'm going to choose this HTML text module because it's the most common. And I can say I want to add that module to the page. So I just say click add, it says it was added, and that module was added here at the bottom of the page. If I go into edit mode, it tells me all the different regions of the page where content can exist. And I can see this HTML text doesn't have any content. I can actually say I want to move this module to the top of the page. And for some reason, it didn't move it to the very top. Anyways, it did move it up. And if I say edit, I can go in and I can, and content, I can save it, and the content is saved. So that's some of the basic content capabilities. But I mean, this is just a module, right? That it's basically taking advantage of the extensibility point of the framework, where everything is essentially a module. This HTML text module is just one type of module. In fact, everything that's in this control panel or this dashboard are just modules as well, right? So site settings, this is a module. And if I go into user management, this is a module as well. So everything is built around this concept of modules. And modules control sort of the functionality of the site. And then themes are what control the look and feel of the site. So let's say if I go into this private page and I go into the page settings, the appearance, I can choose a different theme. So right now it's got the Octane theme. I can choose like the standard sort of Blazor theme that everyone has come to become very familiar with. So if I say update there, boom.
Now it looks like a Blazor template site, right?
So I can switch back and forth, right? So this is still using the Octane theme. and this is using the Blazor theme. So, I mean, obviously there's a lot of concepts that go on behind the scene because a theme has to take advantage of all the typical web standards, right? So a theme is built up or is comprised of a Razor component in Blazor. It also uses CSS, of course. And so it dynamically will add CSS references to the page. And then if I switch to the other page, it'll remove those references and add different CSS references. These are things that are not natively possible, I guess, just as part of the normal Blazor implementation. These are things that were built for Octane that you can take advantage of. And there's a lot of capabilities that have been built over the last 3 or 4 years for Octane that add additional functionality to Blazor.
Yeah, so let's look at a couple questions real quick. So the first one is from Mahesh, and he says, can you share some thoughts on the scalability of Octane? For example, on CSharpCorner, they have millions of users every month, and will Octane be able to handle that? You know, and he's mentioning in-memory caching.
Right. Yeah. So Octane right now does use some caching. It uses the standard like iMemory cache, right? That's part of .NET Core. For the most commonly referenced like entities that are part of the installation, right? Things like which tenants are supported, which aliases for the various sites. So it does use some caching. What it doesn't have support for yet is distributed caching. So if you wanted to run Octane as part of a web farm, it doesn't have the ability to synchronize caches between the different nodes that are in a web farm.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess in a sense that might be a current limitation. Obviously, that's something that's on the roadmap that will be added in the future. But yeah, that's sort of one thing that it doesn't support currently. It probably will support as much as possible. The philosophy in Octane is to take advantage of native Microsoft functionality and not use third-party dependencies. And so if you actually look like in the bin folder for Octane, you're going to find very few third-party dependencies, right, to the things that are not part of the standard .NET 6. And that's sort of done on purpose because we learned the hard way in DNN that the more dependencies you have, the more servicing you have to do to the framework to keep up with version updates of all of those dependencies.
Right.
And all of those dependencies may have security issues that are part of them. Almost like none of the security issues that were part of DNN over time were actually part of the core framework itself. They were part of dependencies that we were relying upon. So yeah, that was one of the philosophies behind Octane. So yeah, like I said, for caching, we'll try to take advantage of the native Microsoft capabilities.
Yeah, because I think what Mahesh might be alluding to is maybe, the ability, Mahesh, you can tell me if I'm wrong, maybe the caching of blog posts or articles on CSharpCorner, but I'm not sure if that's exactly what he meant.
Yeah, and so of course, in the individual modules, you can implement caching, of course, if you want to. You can, just like with you have no limitations in what you can implement within a module. It's just a Blazor component.
Yeah.
Right? So you can take advantage of all of the C# classes that exist in .NET. So you can obviously use caching for those scenarios which are very sort of high traffic or high volume. It's funny because we would often get this question even back with DNN, right? Is like, I want to build a site like Facebook that supports millions and millions of users. Can your open source project support it? Really, is that what you're expecting? It's typically when you get into building sites like Facebook, right? You're getting into a whole other realm of performance tuning and sharding and those types of sites have a whole other level of performance requirements, right? That a typical site does not have, right? So So obviously there is ways to make things run and behave like in a more scalable manner, like in my work, like in my day-to-day job, right? That those are the types of systems that we're having to build for enterprise clients. And, you have to look at it from a completely different perspective.
Yeah. So my friend Mark's asks, are there big name companies looking at Octane right now? Like for example, Microsoft.
So looking at it from, I'm not sure which perspective, but I mean, there's definitely a lot of implementations of Octane going on by a lot of different companies, whether they're, large or mid or small. I guess that's sort of like information. And that is one of the things, I guess, with open source projects that we even ran into with DNN, is you don't always know who's using the software, right? And for what purposes. Only if they become sort of regular members of your community, right? And they start to participate and they sort of explain to you how they're using the software. Because there's a lot of usage, especially of Blazor, I've found, that's happening for intranets, right? Like inside companies, not for public-facing usage. And so you have no idea that like what people are using the software for. So it's kind of it's a difficult question to answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bet. While you were talking about that, I was going, you should put like a little hidden tag at the beginning of the page and then just search websites and look for those tags. But that's, we don't need to talk about that. My friend Mark wants to know, can you talk about your experience developing in Blazor, and did that make your life easier?
Yeah, so I'm going to admit I'm not a very good JavaScript developer.
Me neither.
So because I mean my past development was all based on server side, right? And so the transition to single page applications, I always felt way more comfortable on the back end. I could sort of fudge my way through the front end, but I never felt like I was really great at it. So when Blazor came along, and I realized that I could build, native C# components for the front end using all the skills that I used in the back end. Yeah, I mean, I felt it was a lot more comfortable for me, and I could do a lot more creative things that I wasn't able to do. That being said, there's like scenarios in Blazor that are not really natively supported when you're doing, like strictly front-end development. Like if you need to manipulate the DOM, right, explicitly, then, and there are scenarios where you need to do that, then you still need to write the JavaScript and create the interop. And actually, there is JavaScript that's in use within Octane. Like even what I just described, where as I'm flipping from one page to the other and the CSS references on the page are being swapped, that's of course manipulating the DOM, right? It's manipulating elements in the head of the page, and that's using JavaScript, right? But for the most part, I find that I don't need to resort to using JavaScript. Mostly I can focus on building things with native C#.
Yeah. And I feel exactly the way you do, because, around 14 years ago, I kind of decided when I saw things in our world getting more complicated on the front end and back end, I decided, well, I got to pick one side. And so I picked the back end too. And I think I felt a lot like you did when I first saw Blazor, going, what? I can actually do front end work and not do freaking JavaScript anymore? I'm a happy camper, because I, on purpose, have not really learned JavaScript because I never wanted to use it, right? I coming from, a structured programming language like I have, starting, with VB, JavaScript just rubs me wrong. And so I've, on purpose, have kind of stayed out of it and let other people write it and let me do the back end stuff.
Yeah. At the same time, I guess I think you probably were the same as me and felt really comfortable creating applications in either web forms or MVC, or even user pages, right? All these server-side technologies. But I was always a bit jealous because the single page application model produced such a much better user experience. So the fact that you can now do that and still utilize those, back end development techniques is really powerful.
Yeah. And the last question I'm going to ask, because it's the last one to say anyway, but we're kind of running short on time. And that's from our fearless leader, Mahesh. He says, how can we bring more awareness to this project and maybe present at the CSharpCorner annual conference? So he's kind of inviting you to come to India with us and present in India. So how can we, bring more awareness to Octane?
I mean, I would be honored to be able to participate in the conference. It's fun. I actually have travel restrictions. I can't leave the United States at the moment because I'm in the final stages of a green card.
No.
I put that in air quotes because it's final stage. It's been like 2 years already. That I haven't been able to leave the U.S. And I'm not complaining. That I'm very happy in Florida, but it prevents me from traveling to places like India at the moment.
Really?
So I could join virtually, but at the same time, like I think it would be good to even have at some point a Octane focused conference. I think that there is enough interest around it, and probably a virtual conference to begin with, so that people around the world could all participate in it. But that's sort of, I think, a next step of creating some more awareness. It's interesting that DNN, dotNetNuke, right, achieved very widespread awareness, right, and adoption, and that was partly because I think it was, a very good framework for the types of applications that people were building at the time, right, and it scratched an itch and it filled a gap, right, which ASP.NET didn't fill at that point in time. But at the same time, Microsoft was a great advocate and partner, right? They included like prominent links to dotNetNuke on some of their sites. In fact, to the point where people actually thought dotNetNuke was a Microsoft product. We actually were able to participate in Microsoft conferences, like at there was a conference in Vegas that happened every year, Dev Connections, where .NET was featured alongside SharePoint and other Microsoft technologies, right? That type of awareness is really hard to come by. I don't think Microsoft does not advocate for for third-party solutions anymore that I've seen in that same way. So it's much harder to get the awareness that we got with dotNetNuke.
Well, of course, I knew Mahesh was going to say this, but he wants to do one in Florida this year in the winter, so he can leave the snow and come down to sunny Florida. So there you go, Mahesh. Let's do it.
Okay, well, let's talk. I think that's a good idea.
I'll be the MC, and by then I'll have some Octane experience under my belt. Maybe I can do a session too, and let's do it.
Cool.
I'm more than willing to go pretty much anywhere if someone's paying for it, not me.
Actually, I manage the Palm Beach.net user group.
Oh, cool.
We haven't actually had events recently, so that would maybe help me sort of get that group back moving. And it's easier to do that now that people can actually get together in person.
Sure. And even doing the virtual one would be a great idea too, Mahesh. So, that'd be great too. That's I think doing those conferences would be an awesome way to, promote Octane. And, I made a mental note, not that I'll remember it, but I made a mental note that next time I talk to Scott, I'm going to say, Scott, you need to put the ability to create a Blazor site in Octane from Visual Studio. That's what you need to do. Because I know they won't do it, but I'm saying, if Visual Studio gave you that capability, the same capability that Octane that you showed us even today, that would be amazing. I think it'll be a big win for Visual Studio, as long as you get paid for your trouble and time, of course. But my friend Mark says, thanks for the introduction to Octane. Great show. Yay, because I know Mark is learning Blazor right now. So and he's been pinging me with questions. So maybe
Yeah,
after this he'll stop pinging me. So
yeah,
just
so
kidding, Mark.
Much like sort of what you were talking about with your open source Spargin
Yeah.
like project. I think that if someone's getting started with Blazor and they want to see a lot of examples of how to do different things in Blazor, Octane's a great example, right? If you pull down the source code and you can see a lot of very creative use cases, right, that have been developed already, and you can use those as an example. So even if you don't plan on launching, an application using Octane as the framework, it can be very educational just to look at the code.
Yeah, and now you gave me an idea that I'm going to probably regret. But Mahesh, for the CSharpCorner conference in October, I will be more than willing to do an Octane session to show everybody there. If Shaun can't make it because of his green card, I'm more than willing to do a session on Octane because that's how much I like it. So, so there you go, Mahesh. I said it publicly. I'm bound to it now. So I can't get out of it. I do this every once in a while, but I'd be more than willing to show it. Yeah. Huh?
Have you been to India before?
Yeah, I've been 3 times in a row before the pandemic hit. And
okay. I actually have never been to India, and it's strange because I'm part of Cognizant is a very, it has its roots in India, right? I think it actually had 200,000 employees in India. So
wow.
I was actually supposed to go this summer, but I couldn't because of my travel restrictions. So someday I would really like to see India. And another point you mentioned at the beginning of the show, this offering support for Ukraine. We actually have a studio in Ukraine. I've been to Lviv a couple of times. Luckily, they haven't
That's where I've been. Yeah.
Oh, you have? Yeah. So luckily, that city hasn't been directly impacted.
Right.
However, the people, of course, have been impacted. Their whole way of life have been disrupted. So I'm glad you called it out. Like, it's very terrible what's happened over there.
I know.
And
It's
a lot of good friends and colleagues that, it's just, I can't imagine it going from like a normal way of life to what they're going through now.
I don't think most Americans can really wrap their head around that. And luckily, I've checked in on all my friends there and they're all still here. So I'm really grateful that all my friends are still here. But, those friends, of course, because I visited Lviv, are more on Lviv side. And so Lviv hasn't been hit too much, but, it could be next, and when I saw them, bombing buildings and stuff, I go, you better not bomb the Opera House in Lviv. That's all I'm saying. I like that place, and I want to go back to it. So
there's some very beautiful architecture in Lviv. So
so I got to let you go because we're almost out of time. But thanks so much for being on the show today and spending part of your Saturday. I'm excited about using Octane, and for me to say that, it has to be good, right? Because I have very high standards, and so I'm excited about starting to use Octane now that I have an idea in my head, and maybe with Mahesh, with his company, I might start using it too. So I'm so glad you've been here. You're welcome to come back anytime you want, especially around the .NET 7 release time. If you want to show the Maui stuff, that'd be awesome to come back on the show and show that. And just let me know. I can schedule you on the show anytime you want.
Okay, cool. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks so much for spending some time with us today. I really enjoyed this session.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, that was a great session from Shaun. You guys can't feel how excited I am about Octane because, if you've been around the web as long as I have, I've been writing websites since 1994. Seeing a framework like Octane that will alleviate you from doing all the boring, mundane stuff that we all have to do when we create a web from scratch. Octane's the ticket, and I'm not aware if there's any other frameworks like Octane out there. If anybody knows, let me know. And the other thing I didn't get to talk to Shaun, and maybe we'll talk about next time, is I think they're going to offer the ability to do like paid modules, so you can actually create modules and actually sell them and have them come through Octane. We ran out of time. I wanted to talk to him about that, so we'll talk to him about that next time. So I hope you liked Shaun, and let me know if you did, and I'll have him back on as soon as he wants to. So we got a couple more slides. Don't leave yet. Oh, what happened? Good old PowerPoint never fails to disappoint sometimes. So there you go. Don't forget to pick up a copy of Rockin The Code, Coding Standards for Microsoft.NET. It's the only pure coding standards out there. In most, and I'm writing an article about this right now. Most companies I go to either have zero coding standards or very little poorly documented coding standards. So I've done all the this book has been around for 17 years now. Wow. 17? Yeah, 17 years. I can't believe it. So I hope you pick up a copy to jumpstart your team and your coding standards, and let me know if you do it. I appreciate it. I found this, somebody posted this week, which you all know I love working from home. There's so many great benefits from working from home, and this kind of shows you why. You can see at the left-hand side, all this, you do very little working at work, which is I totally agree with. When I'm in an office, it's really hard for me to get any actual work done. But at home, I pretty much all 8 hours of the day I'm working. And so that's another benefit from working from home, from those companies out there that don't embrace this, which unfortunately, some companies are sliding back to their old ways, and that saddens me. Also, please don't forget to help me help the kids in India. I have a GoFundMe page to help the kids in India, but I donated money. So all the money's been donated to the page I've already donated to the Voice of Slum in India. So you can do that. You can also buy my Code Performance book. 100% of the proceeds of my Code Performance book goes to the Voice of Slum to keep their vocational training going. Or you can just go to voiceofslum.org and donate and buy school supplies and things like that for the kids directly, because they all need school supplies ranging from clothing to, actual notepads and pencils and things like that. So I really want to go back and see the Voice of Slum when I'm there in October. Mahesh and Simon, I want to go back for sure when I'm there, and to see how things have improved there, hopefully, for the kids there in India, because they really need our support. These kids I visited, they don't have the opportunities like we do here in America. And so we have the ability as software engineers to help these kids out. And so I hope that you'll do that. All right. So thanks for watching. No show next week. We'll be back in a week. Also, don't forget about the Code Quality Conference on August 19th. Go to the website now to submit your papers or to register, okay? I want this to be bigger than 72,000 like we had last year. Also, don't forget to be safe about COVID. Shaun and I were talking about this right before the show. COVID numbers in America are ticking up. I'm not sure about other countries, but definitely things are ticking up a little bit here in America. So please be safe. Mahesh recently got COVID, so it's not done with us yet. I think it'll be a very long time that it will be. So please be safe, because I want you to come watch the show or see us live in India soon. On top of that, please also make sure you donate blood at your local blood bank. All the blood banks have shortages, and they need your help, not only for COVID, but for normal stuff too. I'm donating tomorrow. So, my feeling is if I can sit in a chair for 2 hours and donate platelets and plasma, you can sit in a chair for 30 minutes and donate whole blood. It's really easy. It's relatively painless, and it makes you feel like a better human, because you're helping out at least 3 more humans just from one donation. So I think that's cool in my book. All right. Thanks for watching today. I hope you learned a lot about Octane and some about Blazor. And if you have any suggestions for the show, who you want me to be on the show, things like that, please email me at rockinthecodeworld@CSharpCorner.com. And with that, I'll see you in a couple weeks.